Each one of us can imagine the anguish of a parent who senses that his or her child is in trouble. Dr. Marshalyn Yeargin-Allsopp has been a pioneer in identifying the prevalence of autism and other developmental disabilities in children. She was a pediatrician in New York before starting her public service career at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. At that time, no one knew how common developmental disabilities were, so she designed new studies and surveillance systems to find out. Marshalyn expanded the initiative from Atlanta, conducting studies in communities across this country to document the scope of intellectual disabilities, cerebral palsy, hearing loss, vision impairment, epilepsy, and autism. She became a champion for those segments of the population that had long been under-recognized and underserved. As a result of her nearly 40 years of work at the CDC, we know that about 10 million children in the US have some type of developmental deficit due to physical, learning, language, or behavior challenges, and about 1 million children live with autism spectrum disorder. This knowledge has contributed to better public health practices and influenced the expansion of health, education, and social services for children with these conditions. The methods that Marshalyn adopted to study and surveil populations are now recognized globally as the gold standard. In addition, it is my oldest friend of 64 years, Dr. Deborah Hertz, who nominated Dr. Yeargin-Allsopp for this award. By way of clarification, I abstained from voting in this particular category. And now I'd like to present a video about Marshalyn to explain her life's noble mission.
I was a very driven child academically. I decided when I was about 7 or 8 years old that I wanted to be a doctor. By the time I was 9 or 10, I had decided I wanted to be a baby doctor. And I graduated in 1968 as the first Black student to graduate from Briar College. And then I was admitted to Emory Medical School, where I was the first Black woman to be admitted to Emory Medical School. I started seeing children that I thought were a little unusual. They didn't fit my understanding of intellectual disability, cerebral palsy. They were just, a little different in terms of their social behavior and their language. And it dawned on me, maybe these children had autism. At the same time, clinical colleagues were calling me at CDC and saying, "You've been counting children with disabilities for a while. How common is autism? Is autism more common now than it used to be?" And the reason we didn't have an answer is because there had been only 3 studies in the late 80s to early 90s that counted children with autism in the United States, and it was rare. So we decided to do a study in metropolitan Atlanta to use the same methods that we were using for counting the other disabilities and try to count how many children had autism. These were the first studies in the United States that showed that the prevalence indeed was higher than had been reported previously. So the benefit of this is, first of all, we were able to confirm for those clinicians and those families that had a concern that they were right, that autism was more common than had been previously reported. Secondly, because we're able to talk about the magnitude of the problem in communities across the United States, that means that we need to provide services for these children. I love creating that voice for children in particular And not just children in this country, all around the world, because I feel like if a little black girl growing up in Greenville, South Carolina could decide at a very young age that she wants to be a doctor, and not only does she become a doctor, she does all of these other things that, to be honest, are pretty amazing to me. I think is just a great example of what's possible.
A standing ovation for you. And now please join me in honoring the winner of the 2018 Career Achievement Medal, Dr. Marshalyn Yeargin-Allsopp. You might have to duck. Yeah. Very glamorous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Heyman, for your very kind introduction. Thank you to the partnership for this incredible award. Thank you to Dr. Deborah Hertz, who nominated me. I dedicate this Career Achievement Award to all the children with developmental disabilities and their families. My family has provided the foundation for who I am, and you saw the pictures of me as a child. My great uncle, Dr. Benjamin Mays, my parents, Grady and Willie Mae Yeargin, grew up in the rural South during the days of segregation, but they were educated. They went to college in the 1920s and 1930s. They inspired us to reach for the stars. They were always telling me that I could be anything I wanted to be, I could do anything I wanted to do. And I guess I believed them. So I'm very fortunate that I had that inspiration. They're now all deceased, but the spirit that they instilled in me is still here. I would like to acknowledge my stepmother of 50 years. She turned 98 several weeks ago. I would also like to acknowledge my brothers and sisters, Grady, Pat, Nathaniel, and Jean, and my husband of more than 40 years, Dr. Ralph Allsopp, who's here. They have always stood behind me, with me, and have encouraged me in everything that I have done. To my children, and they are Tim, Delana, Whitney, Kevin, Latay, and Renee. Only three of them are spouses. To my grandchildren, Nasia, Ralph, Gabriel, Grayson, and Isabel, and I hope they're all watching. You keep me grounded, and you keep me understanding what's really important in life, which is the children. A shout out to my sisters, whether they are Deltas, Links, affiliation through Sweet Briar College, or sisters because we choose to be sisters. You know who you are, and you are amazing women. You lift me up in prayer, in friendship, and in love. To the staff of the Clayton Early Intervention Program, where I had the honor of being the medical director for more than 25 years, the relationship that we had enabled me to be a better scientist and a much better person. To my mentors, and there have been many over the years, too many to even count, I thank you for your wisdom and for your guidance. And last but not least, to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and specifically to the National Center on Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities under the leadership of Dr. Colleen Boyle, who's here this evening. NCBDDD has been my home and my family for more than 37 years. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to work side by side with some of the most brilliant and dedicated public servants. It has been an honor and a privilege to get to know not only scientists and others at CDC, but also outside CDC. And with these partnerships that have been formed, we have worked together on our common goal, which is to improve the lives of children, no matter where they are, and no matter what their birth circumstances are. So in closing, I'd like to say, for those who've been on the journey with me, and those who are still on the journey with me, wherever you are this evening, my sincere gratitude goes to each of you, and I would like to say that this medal belongs to all of us. Thank you.